Okay, so, wow. You sent over some really amazing stuff
Yeah.
about snails this time.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I didn't realize there was so much to talk about.
Yeah.
So I always thought of snails, those little creatures just kind of munching on my plants in the
Yeah.
garden.
Yeah.
But these sources you sent, they paint like such a more complex picture.
Uh-huh.
So, in this deep dive, we're going to discover some really incredible adaptations
Yeah.
and discover how important snails are in different ecosystems,
Yeah.
from like lush forests to scorching deserts.
Absolutely. I mean, it's fascinating because when we think of snails,
Right.
we're really just looking at, this tiny little piece of
Yeah.
a much bigger picture. You might be surprised to know that snails actually belong to this huge family called gastropods.
Oh, wow.
And think of it as like the coiled shell branch
Okay.
of the mollusk family tree,
Gotcha.
which also includes, clams and oysters,
Yeah.
and even squid and cuttlefish.
Wow.
So gastropods are amazingly diverse.
That makes a lot of sense. So your sources actually break things down into three main categories.
Yeah.
Land snails, the ones we probably see most often,
Right.
freshwater snails, and marine snails.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just start with the land snails.
Sure.
One thing that really caught my eye was that they actually breathe air.
Yeah.
I just assumed they needed like water
Yeah.
to survive. So I don't know. I just always picture them like underwater.
Right, right. That's a common misconception.
Yeah.
Land snails have actually evolved lungs,
Wow.
which allows them to thrive in, these moist environments
Okay.
on land. But they're still dependent on moisture.
Okay.
And that's why you'll often find them, in damp gardens or
Yeah.
under logs and things like that.
Yeah.
You mentioned garden snails earlier.
Uh-huh.
Your sources also talked about
Yeah.
the Roman snail,
Yes.
which is actually a delicacy in some cultures.
Yeah, I was reading about that. I mean, it's amazing how something we might consider a pest,
Right.
like in one part of the world,
Yeah.
is like a prized food in another.
Exactly. And I think it just highlights how,
Yeah.
how limited our perceptions of these creatures can be.
Absolutely.
Like, think about their role in decomposition, for example.
Okay. Yeah.
Land snails are constantly at work breaking down organic matter,
Uh-huh.
like fallen leaves and things like that,
Oh, okay.
and returning all those nutrients to the soil.
Gotcha.
They're actually essential for healthy ecosystems.
So they're like little tiny slimy recyclers.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. So, what about freshwater snails?
Okay, sure.
One thing that puzzled me from your sources
Yeah.
was how they breathe underwater.
Okay.
Do they have like a special trick?
Well, freshwater snails, they have gills,
Okay.
and these gills allow them to extract oxygen
Got it.
from the water.
Okay.
So, I mean, think about like the common pond snail. If you picture it sort of clinging to rocks or plants in a pond,
Yeah.
and they actually play a vital role in maintaining the water quality
Wow.
by consuming algae and, breaking down that organic matter.
So it's like they're constantly filtering the water?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's incredible. But your sources also mention kind of a darker side
Yeah.
to freshwater snails, their role as hosts
Yeah.
for parasites.
Right, right. Unfortunately, some freshwater snails can act as intermediate hosts for parasites.
Okay.
And one of the examples that came up a lot in the sources you sent was schistosomiasis,
Yes.
which is a disease that affects millions of people
Wow.
in tropical regions. And it's just a reminder that, even these seemingly harmless creatures
Yeah.
can have, complex interactions
Those
with
results.
human health and ecosystems.
It's not always so simple, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so speaking of underwater worlds,
Yeah.
your sources had some really fascinating stuff about marine snails, too. I had no idea how much diversity there was
Right.
in this group.
Absolutely. The ocean is just teeming with all sorts of marine snails,
Wow.
each adapted to their specific niche.
Okay.
Take the cone snail, for instance.
Right.
It has this beautiful, beautiful shell,
Right.
but it's also a venomous predator.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it uses this harpoon-like structure
Oh, wow.
to inject venom into its prey, and it's so fast.
Really?
The prey doesn't even know what hit it.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So we've got venomous snails in the ocean.
Uh-huh.
What other surprises are there?
Well, another one your sources highlighted was the periwinkle,
Okay.
which you've probably seen clinging to rocks
Oh, yeah, yeah.
on the seashore. They're herbivores,
Okay.
and they play a crucial role in grazing on algae.
Okay.
which helps maintain that balance of
Right.
the ecosystem. And marine snails as a group are incredibly important
Yeah.
in ocean food webs.
Okay.
They're food for larger animals like fish and crabs and birds.
Right. So they're really a key part of that whole system.
Wow. Okay, so I never thought of snails as being very dramatic,
Hmm. Yeah,
but the cone snails hunting technique.
it's pretty intense.
Yeah, pretty intense. It
Yeah.
definitely changes that. It's amazing how they can survive in such different habitats.
Yeah.
We've talked about gardens,
Uh,
ponds, oceans.
right.
Your sources even mention snails living in deserts.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Wow.
forests and woodlands with all that dampness
Yeah.
and shade,
Right.
they're ideal
Yeah.
for lots of land snails.
Right.
Think of them sort of nestled under logs or in leaf litter.
Yeah.
But deserts
Yeah.
are a whole other challenge.
It's so hard to imagine anything surviving in such a dry,
Right.
harsh environment.
Yeah, it really is. But, desert snails have evolved.
Yeah.
Some remarkable adaptations.
Okay.
Some species like the Sphincterocula boissieri.
I saw that mentioned in your sources. They can actually go dormant for years
Seriously?
during droughts. They seal themselves inside their shell
Okay.
to conserve moisture.
Wow.
And then when it rains,
Yeah.
they rehydrate really quickly
Wow.
and become active again.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it's really remarkable.
Wow. I mean, that's an amazing adaptation.
It really is.
Their resilience is inspiring.
It is. And this incredible adaptation might actually hold clues for scientists.
Oh, really?
Who are, studying water conservation or
Yeah.
developing drought-resistant crops.
Okay.
Some of your sources even touched on biomimicry
Right?
and how studying creatures like this desert snail
Yeah.
could
Mhm.
lead to, technological innovation.
Wow, that's a really cool connection.
Yeah.
So we've gone from snails in our gardens to snails inspiring technological advances.
I know. It's amazing.
I mean, what a journey. We started thinking of them as these slow-moving creatures just munching on plants.
Uh-huh.
And now we see them as key players
Yeah.
in ecosystems all over the planet.
Right. It's so thought-provoking
Yeah.
that these seemingly simple creatures
Yeah.
have so much to teach us about adaptation and resilience.
Right.
And, as our world faces, the challenges of climate change,
Yeah.
perhaps we can learn something from how snails have evolved to thrive in
Right.
such diverse and often, challenging environments.
Yeah, I totally agree. This deep dive has definitely given me a new appreciation for
Yeah.
snails.
Yeah.
And, it makes me wonder, what other secrets are these seemingly simple creatures hiding?
Right.
If you're as intrigued as I am, I encourage you to keep exploring.
Yeah.
There's a whole world of snail knowledge out there
Exactly.
just waiting to be discovered.
Absolutely.